Hey, it's me again, Crime Uncoded. And what I'm about to tell you tonight might make you question everything you think you know about family, trust, and just how far people will go when greed overrides blood. This isn't just another murder story. It's a tale so grotesque, so bone-deep unsettling. It sounds like it was lifted from a psychological horror film, except every horrifying detail is real. The year is 2023. The place, Hong Kong, a city that prides itself on safety, structure, and control. Art, Abby Choi, a 28-year-old model, an influencer, a mother, a woman with 4 children, 100,000 followers, and a seemingly flawless life. Until one day, she disappeared and was found scattered in pieces. Her skull simmering in soup, her legs stuffed into a fridge. But here's the darkest part. The people responsible, they weren't strangers in the shadows. They were family. Let's dive into it. This is the case of Abby Choi, the soup pot murder that rocked Hong Kong. Abby Choi wasn't the kind of woman you'd expect to be caught up in a story like this. She moved through elite fashion circles, showing up in Monaco, appearing in international magazines, posting stunning portraits in haute couture, all while managing the chaos of motherhood. Her Instagram. It was the curated fantasy life. Not excessive, but polished, aspirational. And despite all this, she seemed grounded. She co-parented peacefully with her ex-husband, Alex Kwong, a man she had 2 children with. No public fights, no tabloid scandals, just civility, maturity, the kind that makes you think, wow, they're doing it right. She had since moved on. She was with a new partner, Chris Tam, from a prestigious family in Hong Kong. They seemed happy, solid, maybe even heading toward marriage. On February 19th, 2023, Abby posted her last Instagram photo, an image of elegance, taken during a shoot for L'Officiel Monaco. She looked radiant, composed. But 2 days later, everything shattered. February 21, 2023. It started with something small, but crucial. Abby didn't pick up her daughter from school. That was unusual. No text, no explanation. To those who knew her, that was the first red flag. The family reported her missing. And while you might expect some level of delay in such cases, maybe she's off the grid, maybe a minor misunderstanding, the investigation moved fast. Why? Because something about this didn't smell right. And within just 3 days, the smell became literal. February 24. Police received a tip and were led to a rented home in Lung Mei Chuen, a sleepy, quiet village in the Tai Po district. You could walk past this house and never give it a second glance. But when officers stepped inside, they were met with something out of a nightmare. Let's paint the scene. A refrigerator humming in the corner of an unfurnished kitchen. Inside, 2 human legs, cleanly severed at the thigh. Elsewhere in the house, a massive soup pot, industrial-grade stainless steel, boiling. Inside, a skull, hair, ribs, floating in broth with carrots and radishes. This wasn't just murder. This was something else. There were tools scattered around. A meat grinder, chainsaws, electric saws, protective gear, face shields, gloves, raincoats. Plastic sheeting hung on the walls, presumably to catch the blood spatter. This home wasn't a home. It was a butchery lab. It was set up, piece by piece, for the sole purpose of disposing of a body, with precision and with time. That's when investigators realized this wasn't random. This was premeditated. The body was soon identified as Abby Choi. DNA confirmed it. The skull, despite a gaping hole from blunt force trauma, still retained identifiable features. And then came the real shocker. The people connected to the crime. All fingers pointed to her ex-husband's family. Let's lay them out. Alex Kwong, ex-husband, 28. Anthony Kwong, Alex's older brother, 31. Kwong Kao, their father, a 65-year-old former police officer. Jenny Lee, their mother, 63. Think about that for a second. This wasn't some deranged stranger. This was her ex-in-laws, people she once trusted. The motive? Money. See, Abby had purchased a luxury apartment in Kadoorie Hill, one of Hong Kong's most upscale neighborhoods. But in an apparent gesture of trust, or perhaps naivete, she registered the property under Kwong Kao's name, her former father-in-law. At the time, that might have made sense. Maybe she wanted to ensure her kids had stability. Maybe it was to help the family financially. But as time passed, Abby decided to sell the property. That, it seems, was the final straw. Now this is where things get real murky. We know money was a factor. That apartment in Kadoorie Hill? It wasn't worth pocket change. We're talking tens of millions of Hong Kong dollars. A property in that neighborhood is more than real estate. It's status, legacy. A symbol of permanence in a city obsessed with wealth and hierarchy. And yet, it was Abby's, bought with her money. But because it was in Kwong Kao's name, legally, things got complicated. When Abby reportedly started exploring the idea of selling it, it likely triggered alarm bells within the Kwong family. Maybe they felt entitled to it. Maybe they thought she had no right. But something deeper seems to have cracked. A decades-old grudge, perhaps. Pride wounded by a young woman's independence. And here's what really sends chills down my spine. This wasn't just murder. This was a collaborative effort. A father, his two sons, and a mother, working together to plan, execute, and cover up a horrific crime. Think about that. The amount of coordination that takes. The mental shift required for a family to become co-conspirators in dismemberment. What happened to morality? What happened to the natural human revulsion that should come from harming someone you once considered family? Or was it never about love? Was it always about control? The arrests came fast and hard. On February 25, police arrested Anthony Kwong, the older brother, Kwong Kao, the patriarch, Jenny Lee, the mother, all taken in within 24 hours. Alex Kwong, Abby's ex-husband, proved harder to catch. He went on the run, slipping through Hong Kong's dense sprawl. But here's the cinematic part. He tried to flee the city, not by airport, not by road, but by speedboat. Yeah, that's right. On February 26, police found him trying to board a speedboat with $64,000 USD in cash, luxury watches worth over $500,000, To anyone following true crime patterns, this screams premeditation. The crime had been committed, the body disposed of, and the escape plan was in motion. Alex wasn't just reacting. He was executing his part in a bigger, terrifying blueprint. Police were already hunting him aggressively, and public interest was surging. Abby's friend Pao Jo-yi and Taiwanese influencer Doris even put up a $3 million reward for info. Hong Kong was gripped, horrified, fascinated, mourning. But what really struck people, especially those reading about the case on Reddit or Twitter, was just how methodical everything was. This wasn't a heat-of-the-moment killing. This was systemic annihilation. One of the most unsettling parts? They never found all of Abby. Her skull was found in the soup pot, her legs in the fridge, but her hands and torso? Gone. To this day, police went into landfills, even scoured sewage systems around the home in Longmei Chin. They had over 100 officers involved, crawling through the dirtiest parts of the city, hoping for a clue. Nothing. And it opens up a terrifying door of speculation. Did they dissolve the remains? Did they bury them in the forests around Tai Po? Or worse, were they disposed of in the meal itself? Now, I'm not one to sensationalize, but the inclusion of carrots and radishes in the pot felt intentional. Like a recipe. Like someone was toying with the very idea of consumption. I mean, who brings vegetables to a murder scene? Either they were mocking Abby, or the truth is darker than we're ready to admit. Let's take a deeper look at this family, the Kwongs. They weren't just nobodies. Kwong Kao, the father, had previously served as a police officer. That's not a minor detail. This man once upheld the law. He understood forensics, procedure, how investigations work, and yet he used that knowledge not to protect, but to conceal. The mother, Jenny Lee, was later charged with obstructing a police investigation stemming from a 2015 theft case tied to Alex. Wait, what? So now we're looking at a family with a criminal history, stretching back years, and likely concealed under layers of silence. Suddenly, Abby's murder isn't isolated. It feels like a culmination, a final act in a long, hidden drama, where she became a symbol of escape, wealth, success, independence, and for that, she had to be destroyed. As news spread, Hong Kong stood still. The city, famous for low crime, was stunned. Its murder rate, 0.2 to 0.9 per 100,000, one of the safest in the world. Dismemberment cases are rare, but people started whispering, remembering. The 1999 Hello Kitty murder, where a woman was tortured and her skull hidden inside a plush doll. Suddenly, Abby's case was being compared to Parasite, the Oscar-winning film. Not because of the method, but because of the class warfare undercurrent. You had Abby, glamorous, young, rich, and her ex-husband's family, desperate, criminal, clinging to whatever power they had left. Social media in China exploded. People posted photos of Abby, left digital candles on her final Instagram post. Her followers jumped by 20,000 after her death, not out of fascination, but mourning. And still, no motive fully explains it. No amount of money, not even a luxury apartment, feels worth this level of savagery. So what were they really trying to erase? You know what's fascinating? Reddit, yes, Reddit, played a big role in keeping this story alive outside Asia. After the headlines started to fade from international news, the case resurfaced on threads in r/TrueCrime, r/Unresolved Mysteries, and even fringe boards where conspiracy sleuths gather to obsess over unsolved horrors. One post put it best: "Why would a whole family risk their future for a single apartment? This feels ritualistic." Now, I'm not saying there was anything cultish here, not officially, but you have to wonder. The way Abby's body was handled, the extreme effort to dehumanize her, cooking parts, separating limbs, disposing with surgical precision, it almost feels like a performance. Like they were sending a message, not to Abby, but to anyone like her. Don't rise too far above us. Don't forget who made you. Some Reddit users even speculated whether Alex's resentment toward Abby had been festering for years, that seeing her glow up, new husband, new children, her face in magazines, felt like betrayal, especially if he believed he was owed something more than co-parenting and polite birthday texts. That, my friends, is the scariest kind of evil, the kind that feels entitled. Now, let's bring this back to the real world. The wheels of justice are still grinding. On February 27, 2023, Alex Anthony Kwong Kao and Jenny Lee all appeared in Kowloon City Magistrates Court. Bail was denied, not surprising, given the grotesque nature of the crime. The court adjourned the case to May 8th, so prosecutors could analyze evidence, phone records, CCTV footage, forensic lab results, digital forensics from WhatsApp, Signal, and other chat apps. But even months later, we're still missing closure. In December 2023, an additional charge was filed, preventing the lawful burial of a body. That's not just a legal technicality, it speaks volumes about the prosecution's angle. They're not just trying to prove murder, they're building a case around intentional desecration. Jenny Lee's charge, meanwhile, was reduced to obstruction, related to a completely different crime, a theft case from 2015 involving Alex. That thread alone opens a potential web of deeper crimes, possibly ones never publicly reported. It's like we're staring at the tip of an iceberg, and no one knows how deep the darkness runs beneath. Let's go back for a moment to the house where it all happened. Lung Mei Chun, Tai Po. Sounds quaint, doesn't it? A quiet village on the fringe of Hong Kong's sprawl. Green hills, secluded roads, about 30 minutes from mainland China. The house they rented was unfurnished, recently leased, hidden away, a temporary slaughterhouse, essentially. The police said it was clear the house was prepared in advance. Plastic tarps on the walls to stop blood splatter, chainsaws, electric saws, gloves, face shields, a giant stainless steel pot. This was not impulsive. It wasn't a scuffle gone wrong. This was methodical, clinical, a family operation. And in that cold kitchen, amid vegetables and steel, a 28-year-old mother of four was turned into a message, a warning, an act of annihilation. I think about that house often, what it must have sounded like inside. Did she scream? Did they silence her with a single blow, as the hole in her skull suggests? Or was it drawn out, like something out of a twisted fever dream? I ask these questions not to sensationalize, but to remember that Abby was real. She was alive, vibrant, a woman who smiled for cameras, cradled her children, and posted outfit pics like any influencer. And in that house, all of that was erased. But wait, there's more. This wasn't just a family of 4. By March 7th, the arrest count hit 7. Among the others arrested were a 47-year-old woman named Chi Wing, reportedly Kwang Kao's mistress, 2 individuals accused of helping Alex escape, a 29-year-old woman arrested in mainland China, then handed back to Hong Kong authorities. Let that sink in. You now have ex-cops, mistresses, smugglers, and possible enablers, all in one orbit. The question becomes, how many people knew this was going to happen? How many people watched Abby walk into danger and stayed silent? The horror isn't just in the act, it's in the apathy that surrounded it. And isn't that always the case in true crime? Not just the killer, but the quiet enablers. The friends who don't ask questions, the family who look the other way, the mistas who help clean up. Abby's last Instagram post was on February 19th, 2023, just 2 days before she vanished. She was at a fashion shoot for L'Officiel Monaco, dressed in high fashion, makeup immaculate, staring at the lens like she owned the world. The caption read, "Embracing every moment of life." I saw that post, and I didn't just see a model. I saw a woman caught in that fragile space between freedom and danger, maybe without even knowing it. What makes this even eerier? That post is now a digital shrine. Thousands of comments, virtual candles, emojis, people saying they're sorry, saying she didn't deserve this. Some just leave dove emojis, and others, the ones that haunt me, ask, "Did you know? Were you scared?" We'll never know. The part that keeps gnawing at me, even after all this, is what we still don't know. Her hands and torso were never found. Police scoured landfills, sewage drains, even used cadaver dogs in the Northeast New Territories. But nothing. That leaves us with some brutal options. They were destroyed beyond recovery. They were dumped in a place no one thought to check. Or, and this chills me, they were kept. Yes, I know how that sounds, but in true crime, we learn one thing. When someone deconstructs a human body, they sometimes don't throw it all away. Some Redditors suggested a possible trophy motive, a way to hold on to power, to make sure she was never fully at rest. Another theory, some pieces might have been taken across the border into mainland China, possibly disposed of or destroyed there, forever out of Hong Kong's jurisdiction. Either way, the result is the same. Abby was never whole again. And maybe that's what her killers wanted, to erase her physically, to ensure she could never stand in their way again. Let's zoom out for a second. This wasn't a crime of passion. It wasn't a drug deal gone wrong. It wasn't a love triangle. It was greed. Over one apartment in Kadoorie Hill. Estimated value? Over $70 Hong Kong million. That's about US dollars, $9 million. Abby had purchased it, reportedly as a gesture of goodwill, and placed it under her ex-father-in-law's name. Think about that. She gave them something most people never dream of owning. And in return, they gave her death. It reminds me of something Abby's current husband, Chris Tam, said during one interview. She trusted them too much. Trust. That's the real killer here. Abby wanted to keep the peace. She wanted her children to grow up in harmony, to co-parent responsibly. She even kept close ties with her ex-in-laws, probably for the kids' sake. And that trust was used like a blade. Some media in Asia drew comparisons to Parasite, the Oscar-winning South Korean film. Why? Because underneath all this glitz, fashion shoots, penthouses, luxury cars, there was a power imbalance boiling. Abby was from a wealthy family. Alex's family, middle class, with connections to the police, but always one step behind socially. They may have resented her wealth. They may have feared losing the apartment, losing face, or losing access to their grandchildren. It's the classic have versus have-nots dynamic, twisted into something personal. And let's be honest, we've seen it before. In families where inheritance becomes a war, in marriages where money replaces love, in cultures where pride means more than prison. Sometimes, the people closest to you are the ones who can't stand your success, not because you wronged them, but because you remind them of everything they'll never have. Hong Kong isn't known for crimes like this. Its homicide rate? Around 0.2 to 0.9 per 100,000 people. Compare that to 6.5 in the US. It's practically a safe zone. But this case? It forced the city to look inward, to ask the kind of questions no one ever wants to face. How could this happen here? Journalists called it Hong Kong's dismemberment murder of the century. People compared it to the 1999 Hello Kitty case, where a woman's skull was found inside a plush toy. The image of Abby's skull in a soup pot, beside carrots and radishes, was burned into the collective consciousness. A local paper even called it a horror so precise it felt surgical, a death so intimate it felt Shakespearean. I know this has been heavy, but if there's one thing I try to do on Crime Uncoded, it's this. Pause, reflect, decode. What can we learn from Abby's story? Maybe that evil doesn't always wear a mask. Sometimes it's your former in-laws. Sometimes it's the people who washed your kids. Sometimes it's the people who smiled at your wedding. We live in a world obsessed with trust. But trust, when misplaced, is gasoline. Abby's tragedy teaches us something bone deep. It's not always the stranger lurking in an alley you should fear. Sometimes it's the person who knows your address, your schedule, your secrets. So here we are, 4 suspects in custody, 7 total arrests, a trial still unfolding. And yet, no verdict, no hands, no torso. Only questions, silence, and grief. Abby Choi was a rising star, a mother, a sister, a daughter, and a woman who believed in reconciliation. She's gone now, and we're left with pieces, some literal, some emotional, of a story that feels stranger than fiction. But that's the thing about true crime, isn't it? It isn't fiction. It's blood, bone, grief, love, rage, regret, and the terrifying realization that people are capable of unthinkable things when they think no one's watching. If this story haunted you as much as it haunted me, consider subscribing to Crime Uncoded. We break down cases that fall through the cracks, the stories the mainstream forgets, the mysteries that still whisper in the dark. Hit the bell icon so you never miss a new decoding. Leave a comment, especially if you have theories, updates, or local insights. And remember, the scariest monsters are the ones that look just like us. Until next time, stay safe, stay skeptical, and never ignore your gut. This has been Crime Uncoded, signing off.